If you're a hacker and you're stealing information, up to this point, you have had to find a third party to sell that information to. And depending upon the type of information, the third party pool gets smaller and smaller. If I'm stealing the design for a new stealth bomber from the Pentagon, then who are my potential buyers? It's a very slim pool, and it's a very risky thing to do. So information has value, or has had value, based only on who it could be sold to and what the information was. If I'm stealing a bunch of passwords, then I've got to use some Russian hacking pool that's going to put them up on the dark web, and we'll sell you 100,000 passwords for $1,000, or whatever the price is. But what about Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the information, is it not? The value of the information is inherent in the information itself. I mean, what a boon to hackers. Now, what has happened so far has been trivial, I promise you, to what is going to be happening very soon. Because hackers do one thing very well. They sniff out their target, they study their target, they analyze their target, and when they strike in a very big way. You've had a few big strikes already. The third largest Bitcoin exchange, nearly $100 million, is out the window. The Dow, $65 million, even though that was unwound through a hard fork, which I totally disagreed with, by the way. There are some thinkers in the room. I love that. Good. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And what we have not seen yet, and that does not mean it has not happened, is we have not seen the individual users' wallets hacked. I know people, especially in California, a lot of strange people in California, that have $100,000 or more on their smartphone, wherever my smartphone is. I know I have one. Anyway, $100,000 on a smartphone. And they say, well, I'm using the Mycelium wallet, and it's secure. It's secure? Give me your phone number, and in 5 minutes, I will have all of your Bitcoins. Now, you think that's bragging. It is not. How do you do it? There are at least 100 million telephones in this world that have spyware on it, including keyloggers. How do you get that? Has anybody ever visited a porn site? None of the people here, good. But those outside who have, I promise you, I don't care which one you visited, you have a keylogger on your phone. How? If it's an Android, the first thing that happens is when you first do a drive-by of the site, it sets the download authorized applications flag on your phone. The first click, if you happen to see something that might be interested, I think I'd like to watch that, you now have the spyware on your phone. You all do if you've been there. Now, who's watching? I have no clue. I have no clue. But neither do you. But whoever it is, it's not anyone who has your best interest at heart. And what can you do with that spyware? Well, not just the keyloggers, but also screen capture. So what can you do? Let's assume you've got the spyware, and you have a whole group of hackers somewhere. Russia, the Ukraine, China, Kansas City, I have no clue, but they're somewhere. And they're monitoring all of these tens of millions of phones. And suddenly, you're into Bitcoins, and you download the Mycelium wallet, or some other wallet. Well, what's the first thing that happens? What are your seed keys? Where is it displayed? Now, let's forget about encryption. Let's forget about how secure everybody says these wallets are. To get your seed keys, you have to read them from a screen, do you not? Where is that screen? It's on your phone. Where has that phone been? Maybe to a porn. All right, so now you have an infected device, and someone is watching, and they have a piece of software in their keylogger that says, wait for anybody downloading any one of these 25 wallets. As soon as that happens, get ready. As soon as you run it, it'll say, the first screen that comes up will say, do you want your seed keys? Yes, no, whatever. As soon as that click happens, the very next screen is captured. Those are your keys. I now have your keys, if it's me. I'm not saying it's not me or it is me, but whoever it is, has your seed keys. What does that give them the power to do? Pardon? Take all of your money. All they have to do is go, yep, I lost my wallet. Here's my seed keys. Will you do it? Oh, good Lord, I have 100 bitcoins. I forgot that. I want them all now. In fact, convert them to my Ethereum account immediately. And I'm going to convert that to something else. And pretty soon, you can't trace it. You will never find it. And you will never recover it. Now, has that been happening? I don't know. If it hasn't, I would certainly be surprised. But I promise you this, just like a massive hack of an exchange or the Dow, there will come one day where simultaneously everybody's wallet is emptied. Now, then that will make the news. But by then what? It's too late.
Many of you will know about the concept of scanning for wireless networks. You do it every time you take out your iPhone or your BlackBerry and connect to something like TED attendees. But what you might not know is that you're also beaming out a list of networks you've previously connected to, even when you're not using wireless actively. So I ran a little scan. I was relatively inhibited compared to the cybercriminals who wouldn't be so concerned by law. And here you can see my mobile device. Okay? So you can see a list of wireless networks, TED attendees, Hyatt Long Beach, where do you think I'm staying? My home network, pretty fly for a Wi-Fi, which I think is a great name. Sophos Visitors, Sands and Mere, companies I work with. Logan Wi-Fi, that's in Boston. Hilton London, CIA surveillance van. We called it that at one of our conferences because we thought that would freak people out, which is quite fun. This is how geeks party. So let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's talk about you. 23% of you have been to Starbucks recently and used the wireless network. Things get more interesting. 46% of you I could link to a business, XYZ employee network. This isn't an exact science, but it gets pretty accurate. 761 of you I could identify a hotel you'd been to recently, absolutely, with pinpoint precision, somewhere in the globe. 234 of you, well, I know where you live. Your wireless network name is so unique that I was able to pinpoint it using data available openly on the internet with no hacking or clever tricks. And I should mention as well that some of you do use your names, James Lyne's iPhone, for example. And 2% of you have a tendency to extreme profanity. So something for you to think about. As we adopt these new applications and mobile devices, as we play with these shiny new toys, how much are we trading off convenience for privacy and security? Next time you install something, look at the settings and ask yourself, is this information that I want to share? Would someone be able to abuse it?
People are unaware. Pedophiles, hacking a baby camera is one thing and very trivial, but it's our smartphones that are the real problem. We carry them with us everywhere. 14-year-old girls have waterproof phones that they use in the shower to text. If you check the permissions that applications ask for, over half of them ask for permission to turn on your camera, your microphone, read your SMS messages, read your emails, read contacts, and to send that information wherever they choose at any time. And yet we pay no attention to that. And yet I can promise you, while we are speaking, there are tens of thousands of teenage girls somewhere showering and someone's watching. Someone is watching. These application developers are not huge companies like IBM where they have internal audits and checks and balances. In many cases, it's one or two people whose backgrounds we have no knowledge of. They could be criminals, they could be ministers, they could be priests, we have no clue. But I can guarantee you, given the statistical averages of humanity, that a large number of them are using these permissions for purposes that we would be highly shocked to discover.
That's one method of surveillance, of course, but also the appliances that we use, for example. So could you sort of go into more detail about, aside from smartphones, how else we are surveilled daily?
Well, we're especially from China. We're discovering, every week a new device. Toasters have showed up with Wi-Fi connections in them. Refrigerators, in fact, refrigerators showed up in a corporate environment where the refrigerator was actually recording every conversation that happened within 20 feet of it, and it was sending it to some unknown place in China through a Wi-Fi connection. It's happening more and more. Smartphones are our biggest problem. I carry mine with me everywhere, and so do most people. Most people leave their phones on at night. And even if you turn them off, if someone has planted software, specific software on your phone, the phone seems to turn itself off, but all it does is go blank and look like it's off. It's still listening and still watching. The Harris Corporation, by the way, which is one of my hot buttons out of Jupiter, Florida, has developed a device called a Stingray. Now, a Stingray is like a mobile cell tower. Anybody can get hold of one, even though they allegedly only sell to police departments and military covert or organizations or other authorized bodies. But you know for a fact that if something exists, the criminal element will get hold of it one way or the other. These devices act like mobile cell towers, so a car can park a quarter of a mile from you, and because the signal transmitter is much higher than what is legally allowed, your phone will think it is the closest transmitter. It will connect up. The first thing the device will do is say, "Oh, you need a software update. Your Android needs updating. See, please wait a minute while we update." And then they push down a new version of Android, which is not even Android. It's their own software, which mimics Android, and runs Android sort of in emulation mode, but in reality it takes over full function of your phone. Now, every police department in the country, I think, has one, but Harris Corporation requires in every contract that you tell no one that you purchased or own this device. Now, just to have that in a contract is suspicious to me, don't you think? Why would they want no one to know how many of these devices they have sold and how widespread this type of surveillance is? And I urge all of you young people to please hear me out and do this. Open your eyes without fear of any consequence and see what the world really is.